Hey guys, how's it going? In this video I'm going to try help answer this simple question. Should you buy the PowKiddy RGB30 retro game handheld? The short answer for me is yes. If you enjoy games that the RGB30 screen is suitable for, then I think you're going to have a really good time with this handheld. Games that play incredibly well include vertical shooters for the arcade. So here we have 1941. Mercs. Varth. DoDonPachi.
Mission starts now. Are you ready?
An ESP Ra. All these are arcade games and they look really great on this screen. Any Game Boy or Game Boy Color games are going to look great too. So here we have the amazing Spiderman. Warioland Super Mario Land 3. Game & Watch Gallery 2. And Metal Gear Solid. Neo Geo Pocket games are going to look great too. Here we have Bust a Move Pocket. And here we have Metal Slug First Mission. The Pico 8 is another great system that you can play on this handheld. The 1:1 aspect ratio matches the native resolution exactly, and you can use the Splatterhouse BBS system to download and play new games directly on the console. Here's just a selection of games that I randomly found on the Splatterhouse BBS, and I love that you can play things directly without even needing to touch a computer. There are also a few other systems that supported rotating the entire handheld, and being able to play in a vertical portrait mode. These include the Wonderswan, the Wonderswan Color, and the Atari Lynx. So here's a small selection of those games which had vertical rotation support. If you're a fan of any of these style of games or systems, then the RGB30 was absolutely made for you. You should definitely buy this handheld, and I think you will be impressed with the high resolution 4-inch square screen. Specifically for these systems, you'll get a really beautiful full screen experience that you can't get anywhere else at this particular price point of under $100. I think it's really amazing, and I really recommend it if you enjoy any of these games. There are also a lot of other systems that look very good on this handheld with a few easy tweaks. For NES, we can use some resolution options to crop the edge of the screen. Most of the time, games had some garbage pixels on the left and right side, so when you crop these out, it actually looks very good on this square screen. For the Super Nintendo, again we can do the same thing. We can use some options to trim a little bit from the left and right side and still have a really good looking image. For the PC Engine, or the TurboGrafx-16 as it was known in the West, we can use a square pixel or 8:7 aspect ratio and also get a really good looking image. With these systems, cutting a few pixels off the sides doesn't really affect your gameplay much, and you can really take advantage of that really sharp screen. Compared to other handhelds with traditional screens, the RGB30 will give you a slightly bigger picture, so in that respect it's definitely a winner. Okay, so here's a few systems here that I wanted to see run well, but unfortunately there's a few shortcomings that do ruin the experience a little bit. With the Dreamcast, the CPU that they used, which is the RK3566, it's unfortunately not strong enough to run Dreamcast games at full speed. So even though that some of these games are very playable, sadly they're not perfect. As you know, the Dreamcast had some really iconic shooting games which would work really well in the vertical format, but unfortunately they're not running at full speed. With the Nintendo DS, the biggest problem is we don't have a touchscreen on this handheld, so that rules out a lot of the games that are in the library. Also, when you've got the screen in this configuration, a dual screen, I think they're a little bit too small, but you do have the option to switch between the top and bottom screens. I think there should be a selection of non-touch games that you can still find, but it's not the perfect Nintendo DS emulation console. If you're interested in playing these two systems exclusively, I would probably recommend you look elsewhere because the RGB30 is not ideal for the Dreamcast or Nintendo DS library. Just a quick note about Mega Drive, Neo Geo, PS1 or N64 games. I think they work okay on this handheld, but it's not really a strong point. In most cases you'll end up with the game looking the same as a 3.5 inch 4x3 handheld. So there are a few types of games where I would consider this handheld is not really a good fit. The first of which is fighting games. So with fighting games, the screen size is okay, but I think that the D-pad is a little bit harsh on your thumb when performing special moves, so I didn't find this the best system to play fighting games on. I found that Sega Saturn games on this system didn't play too well either. I think the CPU is just not up to running the games. So something you shouldn't be playing on this console would definitely be the PSP. As you can see, the aspect ratio is all wrong. We're expecting to have a widescreen, and then also the CPU just doesn't have the power to keep up with most of the games. So in this section, I just thought I'd highlight some of the possible negatives that I found about this console. I think none of them are deal breakers for me, but I definitely thought I should mention them just so that you have a balanced view of what this handheld is. So something that pretty much hit me straight away when I unboxed the console was that the plastic material was quite cheap, I think, and it does have some imperfections from the factory. I think that the plastic material choice is not a good one, and if you have something metal near it, maybe like your keys, and you just keep it in your pocket, you will definitely be able to scratch it or scuff it quite easily. Choosing a different colour might mitigate any of the scuffs or scratches that you have, but something you definitely want to be careful is the screen. So there's no screen protector in the box and you can't buy one as well. So I heard that these are coming later, but you definitely want to be careful around sharp objects or metal near this console. So something that struck me as well was that I thought that the battery runs down quite quickly. I'm guessing this is because of the screen and because it's a very high resolution one, it uses more power. I do have my brightness set usually quite high, so this might be another factor, but I found that I can use like 50% of the battery in about an hour and a half or something, or an hour. So I don't have the full tests on this yet, but I think compared to other handhelds in this price range or other things that I've used before, I feel like the battery runs down quickly. On the same topic of power and charging, in my experience, if you try to use a PD charger, which might be a USB-C to USB-C adapter, it won't work at all. It won't charge the device at all. So to make sure that this device is charging, you usually have to use a USB-C to USB-A cable, and then you can see that the charging light has to go from green to orange to red to signify that it's charging properly. Also, the battery indicator in the software has to change to the specific lightning bolt icon. The final thing I'll mention is that I think the software does have a learning curve, especially for first-time users of the Linux operating system or first-time users of these kind of handhelds. The system does run something called Gelos, and Gelos has a lot of features. I think that first-time users will probably get lost in all of the options because you can change so many things about the retro game emulation. However, the good news about this is that out of the box, there's a lot of good defaults set up, so you'll be able to start playing, but then if you put a little bit more effort, then I think you'll be able to get a lot more of the handheld later. There's also another software option coming soon called ArcOS, and you can use that one later if you prefer that one. Most likely we won't see Android on this, however, because the hardware is not strong enough. Most specifically, the memory is only 1 GB of DDR4. So let's just start wrapping up here. For the most part, I think that the experience is really good, especially for this price of under $100 US. The controls work well in the games that you will want to play on it, and the ergonomics, while they're not perfect, I think they're okay given the size and the portability of the device. It doesn't take too long to get accustomed to this like slab shape, but it can be a little bit surprising at first. There are a couple of small issues which I listed earlier. Despite this, I think that overall it does come together and everything is made to a decent standard. The screen is what really is the main draw here, and that is the big wow factor here. If you're looking for your first retro game handheld device, I think this might be a little bit complicated to get your head around because there's a lot of like screen sizes and aspect ratios going on, but there'll definitely be a lot of resources available to help you because it's using quite a standard operating system. If you're not too bothered about that challenge, then I think you'll find that this console is actually a little step up from the other 3.5-inch budget consoles. Also, if you are a Steam Deck owner and you have something a bit more expensive but you think it's a bit too big to take it with you, like on a commute or a short trip, I would also recommend that this device is a companion device that you want to keep around just in your jacket pocket or your coat pocket, something like that. I think that's a good use case for this device. I really like that PowKiddy actually took a risk with this handheld and developed the console around this strange aspect ratio screen, and it's something really unique in this handheld space. I'm definitely enjoying it so far, so I hope that this video helps in your purchasing decision, and I'll see you all in the next video.